Let's rank top landing spots for rookies and free agents at quarterbacks and tight end. I'm combining these two because, unlike wide receivers and running backs, there are far more limited openings. But this one is fun, particularly for quarterbacks, because landing spots for quarterbacks are far more reliant on head coaching hires because a lot of these teams that are bringing in new head coaches, new offensive schemes, new philosophies, they need new quarterbacks. So, which locations are ideal, or as ideal as humanly possible they can get, for these rebuilding teams? Which landing spots are the friendliest locations that can help push things forward for our fantasy purposes? We'll start with Vegas. I maintain my position that this is not a bad landing spot, and I feel vindicated on that because of the Clint Kubiak hiring here, him being the top offensive guy on the market, picking Vegas. There was a really good reason for that, obviously. We know exactly who is landing here. There's no need to speculate here. It is Fernando Mendoza. The Raiders would be foolish to pass on Fernando Mendoza. They are in serious need of a culture reset, and Mendoza's clear leadership skills can drive this team in a different direction mentally. But again, the reason that this is not a bad landing spot for me is that logically, the Raiders should invest their ample free agency funds into an offensive line. An offensive line that is literally the worst offensive line in the NFL. So they should spend all their money to fix that issue. They should also spend a day two pick on a high end wide receiver who can offer some upside and potentially ascend to be their wide receiver one of the future. This is really a solid draft class at receiver, so they should be able to get good talent with a second round pick, or again, they could maybe, look at the trade block and figure out how to get one of these higher end options as well. So we're talking about an ideal scenario here. New offensive line, Brock Bowers, Ashton Genty is a new wide receiver one, a new head coach who is a Super Bowl winner with a proven scheme. That is exactly what you want as a quarterback, right? That is exactly what I would like. I'm not a GM, again, so I don't, it's entirely possible that they could blow this. But again, this should be the top spot for a quarterback, and it should go to Fernando Mendoza. Next up is Miami. So this one is interesting. But go with me on it. When a new head coach comes in, they bring in an offensive coordinator from their previous team. Instead, the Dolphins retained and promoted Bobby Slowick from passing game coordinator to offensive coordinator. Slowick landed in Miami after going from being a hot head coaching, potentially hot head coaching candidate after his first season, which was very successful in Houston as the Houston offensive coordinator, to promptly being fired the next season, right? So there are a couple of things to address. Recent history has shown that perhaps Slowick was not the issue, and perhaps what happened with CJ Stroud had nothing to do with him. Now, he came from San Francisco prior to Houston, so he's got that Kyle Shanahan pedigree, which is probably why he was retained by Jeff Hafley, because Hafley spent time in San Francisco in tandem with Slowick. Obviously, Mike McDaniel hailed from San Francisco, so we shouldn't see any major adjustments in offensive philosophy here. This should be a very seamless location for us to know what's happening from a fantasy perspective. Now, ultimately, obviously, Tua Tagovailoa's inconsistency was the issue here, probably not the system. So they do have to solve the quarterback situation. So I don't think this is a bad offensive situation for a new quarterback to go into. They've got weapons. They've got the coaching in theory. It should be not a major issue. The big question we have is who on earth they can actually get. Moving on to Indianapolis, this is really a great landing spot if there weren't any incumbent competitors here. Realistically, this is probably not a landing spot, but because they technically don't have an official starting quarterback for next year, it does have to be a landing spot. So, hey, it is the third ranked landing spot. Shane Steichen is a solid offensive mind that has shown the ability to absolutely elevate quarterbacks. And it is a fantasy friendly system because he naturally likes working with quarterbacks that are very mobile. The Colts also may not have the flashiest wide receiver room in the world, but it is very solid. I like across the board, top to bottom, extremely solid. Michael Pittman, Josh Downs, we will see if they retain Alec Pierce. And then they also have Tyler Warren. And again, you have one of the best running backs in the league and Jonathan Taylor. You are at no short of offensive weapons. It's a good situation. But the Colts have been very clear that they are interested in extending Daniel Jones, and we did see Riley Leonard finally actually get to play and show promise at the end of the season as well. So the odds of the Colts bringing in someone that would outright be looking at being the QB1 is very slim. Otherwise, the Colts would be a lot higher on this list because it really is a nice landing spot without a whole bunch of organizational drama to deal with. Next on the list is Pittsburgh. I actually don't hate this landing spot as much as I did before. I did kind of hate it. But now that they've hired Mike McCarthy, I don't mind it. McCarthy is a quarterback-friendly coach. Unlike some of the head coaches on this list, he is willing to adapt to his quarterback needs. They definitely have a quarterback issue, and perhaps Aaron Rodgers makes a swift decision, but considering that he's never actually made a swift decision, we might be in limbo for a while. They do have Will Howard on roster, but ultimately, I don't think he would be an untouchable incumbent quarterback. They were a very popular landing spot for Ty Simpson for a while, but with Dante Moore going back to college, obviously there might be too much competition for them to be able to grab him at their pick, but maybe they can. We'll see. I also think that we will see them hit the veteran market again. Yeah, I'm sorry, Steelers fans. I know you don't want to hear that. I know this is nothing that you want. I am sorry. I apologize to you. But unfortunately, this is the reality here. So it's possible that you also get a veteran quarterback if Rodgers decides to move on. So it's likely either Rodgers returning or Rodgers moving on and the Steelers drafting a day 2 quarterback that will compete with Howard, or maybe even tapping into the free agency market. But they do need to add some additional receiving options to make this more of an appealing landing spot, but it's not the worst in the world. We'll get to those shortly. Arizona. This is such a strange landing spot because the weapons aren't the issue. You have Trey McBride. You have Marvin Harrison Jr. Obviously, he is very talented, right? But, issues. But still very talented. Michael Wilson looked like an absolute stud. Jacoby Brissett's performance this season really made me adjust my perspective of looking at the Cardinals from a fantasy perspective. Now, granted, we do have to remember their offensive coordinator, their play caller, is moving on. So we do need to be careful about that. But they have Jacoby Brissett under contract. So logically here, the logical thing is to figure out how to bail out of Kyler Murray, get a rookie quarterback, and bridge him with Jacoby Brissett. I can get behind Mike LaFleur as the head coaching hire because, stemming from Sean McVay is never a bad thing. But man, I cannot get on board with the hiring of Nathaniel Hackett as their offensive coordinator. I had Arizona ranked above Pittsburgh and Indianapolis before this hiring. Now, unfortunately, I have zero confidence in this being ultimately one of the better and successful landing spots because of Nathaniel Hackett. We all know that Aaron Rodgers is talented, and his control over the offense means that any success that you have with him ultimately might not be your success, and I need to see it with somebody else and with another team. And unfortunately, we never saw it. Unfortunately, with Nathaniel Hackett, failed multiple times without Aaron Rodgers. Perhaps this can work if Matt LaFleur can implement Sean McVay's system, but I'm struggling to see the vision here. Next up, we have the Jets. I can't say that the Jets are a good landing spot for any position, let alone a quarterback. I mean, we are literally witnessing Sam Darnold's ultimate redemption arc after being utterly destroyed by the Jets, and I would hate to see that happen to any quarterback. But someone has to start for this team, considering the benching of Justin Fields and the frustration that he had, and then you add in the fact that Tyrod Taylor is no one's long-term solution. Obviously, the Jets will be on the market again for a quarterback. Yet again. Logic would say that they draft a player rather than dipping into the retread veteran quarterback market yet again, since it's not been successful. But unfortunately, I do feel mildly bad for them. As bad as I can feel for Woody Johnson, which is slim. So no, really, I don't. Who am I kidding? I don't feel bad for Woody Johnson. So unfortunately, it makes it hard for me to feel bad for the Jets. I only feel bad for the fans. They were destined to get Dante Moore before he decided to go back to college, which is kind of ironic because, buddy, they're still going to be at the bottom and they can still draft you. So that might be the inevitable there. But regardless, I still give this landing spot a slight edge over the next team because there's no competition. And you do actually have a high-end wide receiver 1 in Garrett Wilson, plus some young promising pieces. And you've got one of the best receiving running backs in the league in Breece Hall, if they can actually manage to retain him. So ultimately, there are weapons here, but it's the Jets. And finally, Cleveland, despite the fact that they are paying a bag to Deshaun Watson for simply existing, and despite the fact that they drafted 2 quarterbacks last season, Cleveland will be back in the market yet again for another quarterback, and this is not speculation on my part. That's not me making something up. I'm fully aware that that sounds silly that a team with 3 quarterbacks on roster is going to go add another, but this was from the mouths of Andrew Berry, so take it for what you will. They are going to do their work on the quarterback market. And he said that he could not tell you if the starter for 2026 was internal or external. So they're going to be exploring a wide variety of possibilities there. I think that they might add a veteran quarterback, which again is silly, but I think that might be what they're doing, which means essentially you're looking at Malik Willis and Marcus Mariota. Mind you, this team heading into the 2025 season had 4 quarterbacks plus Deshaun Watson until they traded away Kenny Pickett literally 2 weeks before the season started. So yes, I fully expect them to add another quarterback to the 3 that they already got. Moving on to tight ends, a lot simpler here. Kansas City, obviously we need to see what happens with Travis Kelce, but even if he stays one more year, this is still the top ideal long-term situation for a tight end. I do think this offense moves forward with Rashee Rice as the first look, but obviously his yearly availability will be in question with constant off-the-field issues. Xavier Worthy has looked more like a piece rather than a focal point of the offense. I think their tight end of the future would have a great opportunity to be the second look in this offense. It is truly the ideal location. San Francisco, sadly, is now one of the top landing spots with the injury to George Kittle. An Achilles injury at his age is truly unfortunate, and with it happening so late in the season, they will have to be prepared to be without him as their starting tight end. Jake Tonjes obviously is the natural pivot. He showcased very well in the relief of George Kittle this season, but he is not under contract, so they either have the option of retaining him maybe, or grabbing another high-end option either in free agency or the draft. This system truly features their tight end, and it is an excellent landing spot for fantasy purposes, but we should note that San Francisco does like a complete tight end with excellent blocking, not just a big receiver. So when you're mocking tight ends to go to San Francisco, just keep that in mind. And finally, Miami on the list twice in the market for a quarterback and a tight end and a wide receiver. They're on every single list. How about that? We know this offense can make a fantasy relevant tight end, and it is critical now that we anticipate that the Dolphins could move on from Tyreek Hill as well. We talked about this when we talked about Miami as a quarterback landing spot. Ultimately, this is all stemming from Kyle Shanahan. So if they get a good quarterback in here, a decent quarterback in here, this can work and the tight end can be productive. There are also several other landing spots that are more dependent on free agents that are potentially moving on. That would be Philadelphia with Dallas Goedert. If Dallas Goedert were to move on, or Philadelphia were to move on from Dallas Goedert, this would be an excellent landing spot. Definitely would really boost itself up there. Same thing with Atlanta. Kyle Pitts, free agent. I expect them to retain Kyle Pitts, so they're not on this list. It's kind of a nothing burger to me, considering that they hired Kevin Stefanski and how much he loves tight ends. And that wraps things up. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed the video, be sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel. You can find me across all social media platforms at It's Terra Time, so make sure that you are locked in, tuned in, subscribed, turn on notifications. I'm dropping more videos as we are inching closer and closer to free agency. It's gonna be fun, guys, so stick around.